good morning, everybody. Welcome to today's presentation. It's another in our series of QBO feature spotlights with an app partner, and I'm really excited. Jessica Green is on from Tsheets today, so we'll bring her on in a sec to introduce herself, and really excited. So it's going to be QuickBooks Online Payroll overview, really, and then the time tracking fundamental feature set within QuickBooks Online Plus, right? Though we have time tracking in Essentials as well. I'm going to be in Plus. Typically, I'm in Plus for all these webinars that you all come to. And thanks for coming today, taking your next hour out of the day to look at time tracking in QBO and then Tsheets, how it expands that functionality. And, you know, the special thing with Tsheets, outside of Intuit purchasing them last year, and I think they've been under the company, literally Jessica's emails and Intuit.com emails. So that's pretty exciting, or I can Slack her, you know. So pretty cool. So, but Tsheets has that kind of special, more integration built into QuickBooks Online, and we'll have Jessica come on, and she'll be breaking that down as well as a demo into the Tsheets app and how it integrates with QBO, etc. So, pretty cool. Thanks for coming. Now, administratively, and before I introduce myself, then Jessica, I did upload the deck that I'm going to be using, right, into the handout section. So it has some other screenshots, etc. By all means, check that out. And then if you have a question, and particularly when Jess starts at like around, you know, close to the bottom of the hour, like 12, like I don't know what time zone you guys are. So anyways, close to the bottom of the hour when Jess takes over, I'll be handling back and sitting back and handling the Q&A. If I do see something thematic, right, that I think is impactful or whatever question, we'll try to address right away so you don't have to wait to the end. Because you might have something at the top of the hour you need to go to. So by all means. I am recording the session. And again, thanks for coming. So here I am, longtime pro advisor, mostly focused on QBO and QuickBooks Online accountant right now. But I still install desktop, right? Tsheets works with desktop too, right? So I have Accountant Edition, Enterprise Accountant, and I even go into like my point of sale product like bi-monthly. It's quite a shocker, but still go in there. But mostly focused on QBO. And like you're probably supporting both platforms as well. For the most part, that's how it is. So you'll have desktop as well. We're going to be focused on QuickBooks Online today. I've been with Intuit since '04, and I'm still doing the QBO show, formerly Radio Free QuickBooks, with Stacy Kildall. That's a bi-weekly show. You can find out more about that at radiofreeqb.com. And do download, or feel free, I guess you can't download it, but you can check out the QB Matrix. It's an online spreadsheet that attempts to compare, you know, the QB ecosystem, Pro, Premier, Enterprise, the Accountant Editions, QBO Essentials, Plus, across about 135, 140 different feature sets. Now, I don't include Simple Start there. I mean, it's probably rare you're going to be using Simple Start, although Simple Start, though has no time tracking, it does have payroll, you know. But I think mostly in your wheelhouse of QBO, it's going to be Essentials and Plus. And particularly if you're coming from desktop, like I always maintain, it's probably Plus because it has class tracking and two-sided items. But Essentials is quite functional as well. I just find Plus to be most akin to QB Pro. Right, just a couple feature sets away. But now let me bring on Jessica Green. So Jess, if you can unmute yourself, introduce yourself, and then I'll dive into product.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Woody. Thanks, everybody, for attending as well. My name is Jessica Green, and I have been with Tsheets for almost 4 years and with Intuit for about 7 months. So we were acquired in January of this year is when it was made official. So we're going to dive into more of what Tsheets is later, but we're a time tracking and scheduling software. So we sort of fill that gap for QuickBooks and for Intuit. So we came on board in January. I work on our pro marketing team, so working with accounting professionals, bookkeepers, CPAs, accountants to help you get onboarded onto Tsheets, provide education, so opportunities like this, among other things. And I used to, and not as much anymore, travel. So if you've ever been to like a QuickBooks Connect or a Scaling New Heights or a big conference, you might have seen me standing and yelling on a table doing a demo of Tsheets quite loudly. So that's my little Tsheets claim to fame. And just something fun about me, I got married in December and expecting my first baby in January. So hence why I'm not traveling as much anymore, kind of getting ready for new changes in my life. But I'll be back on later to talk more about Tsheets.
Yeah, and thanks, Jessica, and congrats to that. I was going to say a hearty congratulations. That's awesome. And yeah, and I was going to mention, yeah, most of you, if you've been out traveling or gone to any conferences anyway, you've probably seen Jessica demoing. And as well, I'm in a similar theme, though not having any more kids. We have 3. I'm totally grateful for that. And I'm 51. We have a 4.5-year-old. So again, hopefully no more children on the horizon, but also not traveling as much. Anyway, so thanks, Jessica. She'll be on real soon. So here's what I'm going to do within QBO, and then Jessica's going to dive into her Tsheets, and also we'll show the integration with QBO. So we're all aligned, right? These are what these presentations are for when you really need to expand what QuickBooks Online just can't do, okay? So, and I'm going to look at a couple key slides to align on the payroll piece for those that are uninitiated, and then we'll dive right into product. I'm going to go, I always like to start in the gear icon account and settings, look at some of the key time tracking settings. Now, in case you don't know, these time tracking settings are not just in Plus anymore. They're also in Essentials, right? Then I want to look at the time tracking only user. I'm going to go into my phone app and show you that, just so you know. It's actually not on the QuickBooks app on the phone. I'm just going to use like the native Chrome I have on my iPhone, or you could use Safari or Firefox as well. Some time, options. We'll do a couple time entries. I can pass through to an invoice or payroll. I think Jessica's also going to show the pass-through payroll, so if I run out of time, she'll be able to handle that. And then a quick overview of just payroll and the payroll settings, some tips and tricks and reporting, and then Jess will take over, right? So quickly, our payroll options, right? QuickBooks Online Enhanced Payroll, this is that are inside of QBO, and then you have the full service payroll that's inside of QBO. There is still the standalone payroll solution, obviously, Intuit Online Payroll, because remember, it used to be PayCycle, and then we have the standalone Intuit Online Payroll for accountants, as well as the Intuit Online Full Service Payroll. I will not be in or addressing those at all today. It's going to be the stuff inside of QBO, but some of you, use Intuit Online Payroll for accountants because you're offering like a complete payroll solution for your clients, right? So well, maybe we could do a webinar on just the different payroll options and dive in, dancing around those products one day. I think we get feedback on that. So we're working on that one too. But we support all 50 states, print paychecks, or use a direct deposit. Obviously, we encourage that. For W-2, we do not have the 943 form. Right? So it's 941, 944, 940. E-pay is available, e-filing, of course. There's a $2 per employee per month typically. I know sometimes it changes depending on when you had the payroll, but and that covers like direct deposit and the e-filing of the forms and things like that. We do not impound taxes. Employees can view their pay stubs online, and then all the rest you probably will notice what we do. Sometimes you can even go into the IOP app and sign in and do the work there. And you can, under the wholesale billing, you can move payroll into that. So you know how you get 50% off? You get 50% off of the payroll as well. Let's see here. Wholesale, Tsheets wholesale discount through QBOA, I think it's more the 20 or 25% off is what it is, but Jess we'll talk about that in pricing later on, Mario. So good question, but it's not part of the wholesale at this time, but you could set up Tsheets for a client, and I believe it's 20 or 25% off. But I'll let Jess tackle that, and I'll leave the question up so I don't forget, because you guys have been to my webinars before, and my short-term memory is not awesome. I like a goldfish. So QuickBooks Online Full Service Payroll, client submits payroll, we file and payroll taxes on their behalf. That's the main difference, right, is we're taking on the tax liability and the filings for you. You're just really creating the payroll or running it or entering the time, right? But again, no tax impounding. Okay, so you have access to your money even up to the point where you're paying the tax payments. That's basically what that means. I mean, to me, it means that. And full service can also be under the wholesale discount. I have a lot of friends that are moving from like the standalone IOP for A to the full service payroll. It's because they don't want to deal with tax payments and filings, but totally up to you. And then typically payroll data flowing into to QBO, right? Pay employees, pay taxes, file forms. It's inside of QBO. I mean, it's a tab. It's in the workers tab. We're going to look at that already. And then the things we don't support, right? I want to make sure we're aligned so you can consult with your clients. This is my webinars are not all sunshine. Okay, I think that's fair to you and your time. So where are the gaps, and where does something like Tsheets come into play, and particularly other things to consider with payroll? So we support up to really, it says 150 active employees, but I think the norm, if you were to call care, would be 50. And then we do quarterly or annual payroll schedules. These things we don't support, right? Owner draws, wage reduction, roaming employees. Not that desktop does that any better. Statutory employees, we don't do the certified payroll, but the desktop payroll does, right? Union dues we don't track, and like I mentioned, we don't do the 943. I will show you the quote-unquote payroll summary report in QBO. I'll probably end with that and when I'm done with my session before Jess takes over. But these are things that are important to know. So download this deck so you know, right? I want to make sure that you're putting the right people on the QBOP that and you're going to be able to support them. Okay, so very important. And then here we go. We're going to dive into product. Now, one other question from Cindy. Can you email a copy of the PowerPoint? Yes, I can. Thank you. My email. So email me, Cindy, at woody_adams@intuit.com. It's in the chat area. Send me an email, and I'll just respond. If you can't download it, it's in the handout section, but sometimes you can't. Just go ahead and send me an email, and I'll do it. And then you can always look at our site, too, QBOBestPractices.com. A lot of videos around time tracking, payroll, things like that, etc. So, gear icon, accountant settings. I'm in QBO Plus, but Essentials would have this as well. You go down to the Advanced tab. There's a couple of things I want to talk about, not really for job costing, because still I cannot attach a job, meaning customer, sub-customer, or project to labor burden, right? That would be Notifier, CoreCon, and I think that Tsheets, though, it does pull in the customer list. So we'll ask Jess about what kind of reporting you can get out of that. I know it's going to be a little bit better, but still, like the actual labor burden, the payroll, I can't job cost yet at this time with QBO. That's still a desktop thing, but we do have third parties, right, for that. Now, scroll down. You'll see time tracking. It's the same time tracking option in Essentials as well. I can add the service field to timesheets. Remember, what I like about Plus is that it's two-sided items, so I can put the service field on the timesheet, but you can do that in Essentials as well, even though it's a single-sided item. But still, check that off because your client might have started with an estimate, right? Two-sided items. And so, what's the phase of the job? What's the work they're doing? So you check that off, and I can even make it billable if I want to pass it through to an invoice. Tsheets would also support that as well, right? Tagging the job, making it billable, passing through to an invoice or payroll, right? Like fork in the road, where's it going? Sometimes it's to both. And then first day of the week. That's essentially the only real time tracking to consider. I do like to point out in expenses setting, this is where you show the items table on purchase forms and track expenses by items and customers. So if you want to do some of the light job costing in QBO Plus, I suggest Plus for it. Do come to my Beyond the Basics Service-Based Business Workflow webinar. We spend like an hour on that kind of stuff, the light job costing within QBO. And the link should be in the deck. If not, email me. But yeah, so that's the time settings that are important. The other thing to mention, let's go into the gear icon, Manage Users. With Plus and Essentials, you can have unlimited time tracking users. They don't actually have access to financial statements, to the bank feed, the register, reports, payroll, anything like that. They only have access to their time tracking. And that's in Essentials too. I don't know if you guys knew that. Essentials does have time-only users as well that don't count against the user list, right? So I have, in the user window, I have, I think, Wood 1099C. He's just a vendor contractor, but he's a time-only user, right? So when you click Add User, just to show you, you can do time tracking only. Essentials would have it only. I mean, Plus has the ability to do like read only, right? A report only person that can't modify data, but they can see like all the reports. So keep that in mind. But the time tracking only user is just for time only, right? And I have this Wood 1099 user set up as a time tracker. And I could have as many as I wanted, and they wouldn't count against the active user list or anything like that, right? Totally free. So that's something to consider, and I'll show you on the phone app for that. Now, under the quick create, because I'm guessing some of your contractors are using the phone, right? And they would just have this kind of time-only access to QBO. But you got to see the Tsheets mobile app is way, way better, right? I mean, I'll be logging into Google Chrome or Firefox, okay? It's not really an app. The Tsheets app for time tracking is just on a different level, right? They do all the, anyway, I'll let her. It's exciting. We'll get to that, I promise. So you have, even if I don't have payroll turned on, now I happen to, but I have single time activity or weekly timesheet, right? Now notice this approved time, this is actually integration with Tsheets because I have Tsheets already connected with this file. So Jess is going to handle that part with her own file. The approved time is like Tsheets. When I actually go to the weekly timesheet form. We'll just do a quick enter. I guess I was already there earlier, but you get a pop-up. Yeah, see? To add a timesheet, go to approve time. Remember, it's reminding me about Tsheets. You've probably seen this too. Okay, so approval time, I can approve the time I even entered within Tsheets. Anyway, so I'm going to choose a customer name, and we are actually going to backdate this because I have this date range. On the payroll I'm about to run, I have ABC, bookkeeping, and we'll do, I think today is Tuesday. Yeah, we'll do like another 4 hours or something for this. Notice I can tag, you can do this on a single time activity window as well, but I'm tagging the customer, right, the service item, right, choosing all the different items, right, because I'm not hitting the account here. I'm hitting the item linked to the account. And that's why you want to use +2. But then you have location or class tracking, and then I can make it billable if I'm passing it through an invoice or not, right? Now, I can also do this. Let's hit save and close. There's a single time activity. Now, I'm going to show it to you on the phone. So we are going to open up the phone. Hopefully you guys are seeing that. This is me, that user, logged into through the browser of Chrome. Time tracking is not yet at the QuickBooks app level, but I'm logged into the phone to qbo.intuit.com through a browser. Okay, I want to make sure that's important. And would 1099-C, that employee, this is what he sees, right? He sees only time stuff for him. Weekly timesheet, time activity report. That's it. And I can already see that I have 4 hours this month. So I could do time activity on the phone. Right, I got to click it on the phone for you to see it. Always make that mistake the first time, trying to click it up on the screen. All right, so very similar to the time activity option, right? I can put in the duration. We'll say it was like, 1.5 hours, or do start time. Now, there's no time clock, right, with QBO. That's another reason why I like Tsheets as well. Customer, I could tag the particular job. We'll do the ABC customer, and I can choose my service item. All right, and we'll do like, this was bookkeeping, okay, or site demo, or demolition, drywall, whatever. Anyway, I can make it billable or not. Just want to make sure you know that. Billable means what? It's going to pass through to an invoice. And there's ways to automate this within settings we won't cover, but do come to that other webinar I was talking about. Location, class tracking, a description, all that is totally, you can do at the time tracking level, and I can click save and close. Now, Woody can also see his report just on the time this week. This is the only report he has access to. And again, it's not really formatted for a phone, right? I got to do a lot of pinching and expanding to get to see stuff, to make it bigger, right? But I can at least keep track of my time and stuff and report on it if I want to, right? It's just that you'll love the Tsheets app because it's just way easier to do all this stuff. I mean, this is ridiculous. I can barely see it. But still, I'm able to do it with a free time user, okay? Now, that time is in here. You can see it right here. I did some time charges. Left-click search field will always show you the last 10 transactions in the file. Sure mine's not. There you go. Got a bunch of time entries, right? Now, if I happen to go to an invoice, because I want to look at payroll and a few other things and let Jess take over. So I got about 10 minutes left. If I go to an invoice and put in that customer, it'll show up where? It'll show up in the drawer, right? And I can filter just time, and we can see the time entries we have, right? The stuff that I did, particularly for that week we're looking at. Now, this can go to payroll as well as an invoice. So I can add all my time, and we know time is non-posting, right? But now, boom, when I click save and close, then it debits AR and credits the revenue accounts linked to these items, right? These items I got on the phone, or I did through other ways today, right? So you can make it billable to pass through, or the goal, whether you're using the weekly timesheet or the single time activity, right? Weekly timesheet we used on the browser, on my laptop. Single time activity we did just now on the browser on the phone, just so you could see that. Or I could go approve time, but I'll let Jess handle that one. When I go to workers, here's my payroll side of it. And I click run payroll. Now I know it says I'm on a biweekly schedule, so the next payroll is due 8/24. But I'm going to run it as of, I think it's 8/10 for that pay period. Or maybe it was 8/5. Let's see. So if we change it to 8/3, 7/21 to 8/3, you can see that I have for Deborah Wood, 40 hours, and I got 4 hours for Scott Heckman. Let's see, let's try a different week. 8/4 to 8/17. Let me try the current Yeah, let me just try to see. Yeah, oh, well, I'm sorry. Wood is a 1099 contractor. He's not an employee. That's why he's not showing up. I was just faking myself out. But this is where it would come in, right into this regular pay hour, right? And then you could put in the other hours, and I could just choose to pay just these two, which I'll do. Just Scott and Deborah. Preview payroll. So the time just flows in from the timesheet, you know? And then deductions, let's look at that. So increase to pay Scott, increase her pay, increase deductions. To exclude Scott from the payroll, clear the checkbox. So let's look at Scott's email. Let's go ahead and preview payroll for Deborah, and then you just submit it. It's like a three-step process like in desktop, right? So you have net pay, and then we'll go back to an employee to look at the different options as well as the payroll settings and look at related reporting. But so I run payroll, the schedule's every other Friday. We're just running payroll for Deborah here, right? Hourly rates, current, year-to-date. And if you scroll down, I'd see both the employee taxes and employer taxes. Now, how do we get to all that? That's in the setup of the payroll. We're going to look at that real quick now. Quick overview of what's available, and then we'll look at payroll settings. But I'm going to click OK because it's important to mention, as you probably know, for those that are running payroll, when you submit it, you know, I'd have to delete or void the check if I need to make a change. I can't really make a liability adjustment, right? So some people, before they're sure, will do save for later, you know. But I'm going to go ahead and just submit Deborah so we have something to report on. Because I want to show you like QBO's version of the quote-unquote payroll summary report. It's ironically entitled Payroll Details. Right? So we'll put in a check number, okay, and then we'll finish payroll. Now, let's go back to the employee list and click in on Clay here for a second, just to show things that are available. It's broken down into pay, profile, and employment. So under pay, I have these options of, you know, the W-4 basically, married with 3 allowances, so that's there. How often do you pay, Clay? So you can choose a schedule, right? But then how much do you pay? Let's look at that, the different compensation items, and then we'll look at different deductions. Just in case you've never done payroll in QBO before, well, what's available? Maybe you're used to enhanced payroll for accountants or something. So now I can add hourly rates, right? And you can pay overtime, double overtime, sick. And we have the essential options, right? Hours, year accrued, new vacation pay that you have, and you have at beginning of year, each pay period, per hour worked or anniversary date, right? Just wanted to show you those options that you have there. And then I have bonus, commission, advances, mileage reimbursement, bereavement, and then of course we have even the uncommon ways, still supporting clergy housing, in-kind, cash tips for like waiters, waitresses, so kind of a restaurant thing, as well as personal use of company car, etc. So those are the different like compensation items you could do. And then let's look at also the deduction items, because that always comes up, and the options that are there, and how you'd kind of create your own if you're not sure. So I have the 125, garnishment, let me see. Add a new deduction. Sorry, that's what I meant. Right? You choose, it's either between, you know, the main buckets are deduction, contribution, or garnishment. Then you can choose, you know, a deduction within that, 401k, new deduction or contribution that's different. Let's do 401k. And then you keep breaking down for there. Amount or percent, and then if there's a company-paid contribution. So like in desktop, it creates the company-paid contribution when you create the deduction. In QBO, you're just doing it side by side as you're going through the deduction, right? So that's part of the setup that you're going to be walked through with the QBOP when you're setting up for a client. And then full service payroll, we actually do it for you, you know, or with you. So there's something to consider there. So those are the key things regarding pay. Let's just in the essence of time. So, and I'll get to those questions in a second as I'm handing off to Jessica, but I got like 4 minutes left. So let me show some related reporting and then payroll settings, and then we'll hand it off. Go to reports. It's not that we don't have the payroll summary report. It's just that, and then scroll down to payroll. We call it something different. If you click on, and you guys that have done payroll with QuickBooks Online, you know when you click on the payroll summary report, what is it? It's just a list of paychecks, right? It's not actually akin to the one in desktop, right, where you have, you know, the columns and the employees and rows and things like that. That's actually the payroll detail report. Very important report. I would favorite it to bring it up to the top of the report center. But this is where I can do a summary by employee. Now, I know the rows and the columns are flip-flopped versus desktop, right? So I have rows here, then columns here. But I could do, this year, and then summary by employee. And then you can even filter. This is not location tracking. This is actually work location tracking, which is within the payroll settings itself. So I could filter by a work location. But that's separate from like class location tracking that's already in Plus. Okay? So when I run the report, it's going to look at this year, all the employees on the left, and then I have my items on going as columns, if you will. Right? So this is our quote-unquote, the payroll summary report. And at the bottom, you have a grand total and a total that you can help to reconcile to, the forms, et cetera. Speaking of forms, you get there by going to taxes. And then, it's going to land on sales tax, but just click on payroll tax. So here are all the forms that are available. And then here's where you can edit the e-file pay-up, e-file and e-pay setup, tax payments and filings, like to automate that, edit the tax setup, view prior history for archive forms, and then view the current forms are there. And yes, Sherry asked, can you have multiple hourly rates for the same employee? Absolutely. When I went into the pay pencil icon, I could click add hourly rate. I actually had like 4 for Clay. So you can for sure do that. And Carl, I'll get to your question next. Key thing, I always get asked, hey, how do I stop all the email notifications coming to me, right, when you set up a client? Go into payroll settings. It's a gear icon thing. And then you can always impact your payroll settings, outside of payroll that. And yes, we do. Daryl asked if we support state filings. Yes, for most of the 50 states. I'll try to, while Jessica's presenting, I'll try to get a link to give you that shows. I know I bookmarked it recently, the states we support for e-file and e-pay. All right, so I'll leave your question up, Daryl. Thanks for that. Here, email. So we have a lot of different payroll settings, e-file and pay policies, tax setup, deductions, et cetera. You can always come in here after the fact, once you set it up, to change something, right? Or do it from the actual employee record. Because when I create a new hourly type for an employee, it actually becomes available for other employees if you want, okay? But the email one, really big one. Here's what I do when I first set up a client for QBOP. You have to have the accountant needs to be on one of them. So these are why you're getting so many of these email reminders, right? Because I think they default to both accountant and client. So I usually do this. I set up payday notifications for the client and the tax payment notifications and the form ones for the client to get the email. But I can be no one on all the rest. And then I set myself up as accountant users, because accountant user has to be one of them, right? Only one, but it has to be one of them. I do setup notifications. Why? Because I've already set it up. So therefore what? I never get an email again. It's kind of a cheap trick to not get notifications. But there's all sorts of other preferences that you guys can go to. Accounts, that's another one. What are the accounting preferences, right? You set up with your chart of accounts. We do some defaults. Here's where you come in to link, the expense accounts to sub-accounts if you want to. You just click customize and it'll open up that ability, right? You can even do class tracking per employee within here when you click customize. There's some other options. Yeah? So payroll settings really key. See, do you assign classes to transactions? Right? You can do it for different employees. You can do different accounts for different employees as well. I use different accounts for different, right? All this stuff. Make sure once you walk through the setup of just payroll within QBO, and it's easier with full service because we're doing it with you. Go into gear icon, payroll settings, to go through some of these other like buried settings that you might not even know. Like, how do I do a sub liability account? I should be able to, but I didn't see the setup when I was setting it up. Well, you go in here to do that, okay? So these are all the key preferences. It's under gear icon, payroll settings. I wanted to make sure you saw that, and particularly around the email preferences. Okay, Jess, I think that's it for my thing. It's like 11:29 your time. Hopefully that gives you plenty of time, a good 31 minutes. I'll go on mute, and I'm going to change you as the presenter and make you presenter now, and I'll handle Q&A. Cool?
Awesome. Yeah, sounds great. Thanks, Woody. That was a great overview. All right, everybody. So you should be able to see my screen, and what you're looking at now is, of course, the Tsheets side. So we've sort of talked through, at a high level QuickBooks and all the different ways you can track time in QuickBooks. And so Tsheets is an alternative solution to that. And in some cases, and I might be a little biased, but I might say most cases, just a more robust and probably better solution, especially for those looking for time tracking for their employees. So just to set the stage with a little context, Tsheets is definitely geared towards and can be used by accounting professionals, and I'll talk a little bit about that later, our partner program for accountants, and there's lots of accountants who use us. But while I'm presenting and while I'm sort of talking over the different ways to track time in Tsheets, what I'd love for you to be thinking of are actually your clients, because Tsheets is developed also for those small business clients. So be thinking about, if you have construction clients or retail clients or honestly anybody who owns a small business and they have employees, we're just going to be a great fit for them. So as opposed to maybe thinking about how you might use this, start thinking about that and also maybe clients you see that would be a good fit, because I think that will help you in when you see all the different features and understanding how those could be used, as opposed to probably having the realization that you might not use all those features, since a lot of accountants in the profession don't need that hourly time tracking as closely. So just giving a little context there. So what you're looking at right now, this, like I said, is the Tsheets web dashboard. So Tsheets is a time tracking software and scheduling, and it's all in the cloud online, can be accessed from anywhere on any device. And like Woody mentioned, it does fully integrate with not only QuickBooks Online, which we'll focus on today, but also QuickBooks Desktop. So both of those softwares, absolutely 100% integration with those. And basically how that works is Tsheets pulls over from QuickBooks all of your customers, jobs, service items, classes, and even a billable yes/no choice. We also pull over your employees and your vendors as well. And then those employees and vendors are able to log into Tsheets. They're able to track time against those customers, jobs, service items, classes, etc. And then that time can be approved right inside of QuickBooks Online and then used to do payroll or to create invoices. So just makes the whole time tracking complexity just much simpler. You can access it from the web like we're looking at now. We do have a mobile app, which I'm not able to show you on a webinar today, but we have a mobile app for iPhone and Android that does some location tracking, which we'll get to in a little bit. We also have a kiosk mode that I can show you as well today. So let's dive in and talk a little bit about the web dashboard. So what you're looking at here on the left, that's my time clock. So a punch-in style time clock. So, imagining maybe somebody that works at maybe a design firm for graphic design. They go to the office every day. They're an hourly employee. They sit down at a computer. They log in. They would choose maybe which customer they're working on for the day, which service they're providing, if their time is billable or not, and then they can hit clock in. And what that does is it clocks them in that second, and at any time that employee can see how long they've been working that day, that week, and on that particular task. So they're also able to switch from job to job throughout the day. They just hit that switch option. That's going to switch them from that one job to the next. So at any time, Tsheets is tracking, where they're working, what they're working on, how long they've been working on that particular project, and then how long, of course, they've worked total that day and that week for overtime purposes. The employee can also leave notes on their time card. So if we're that design firm and we want to leave notes for the client to see later on our invoice or for our manager to see on what we're working on, we can do that. And then we can also, from the mobile app, take pictures from our time card. So if we wanted to take a picture of our project or, a picture of an invoice number or even, an idea that they had, or maybe it's a landscaping company and they want to take a picture of the lawn they just mowed, they could do that from our mobile app. So I'm going to pause here on the tracking time, talk a little bit about this who's working window, and then I'll talk through a couple other ways to track time as well. But over here on the right-hand side, you're looking at our who's working window, which is definitely one of the favorite features at Tsheets. It allows a manager or other employees to at a glance see who's working, what they're working on, how long they've been working on that particular project, and also see where their employees are located on a map. So as you can see here, I'm located at the newest Intuit office in Boise, Idaho. You can zoom in, you can click on these dots to see when that time was pulled. That was pulled at 8:08 this morning. And if I stay within, 150 feet of that signal, it's not going to pull it again just to really save on that battery and data life. So if I stay at my desk all day, it's not constantly pulling my signal, but if I get up and go to lunch or get up and drive to a client's house, it will track that. And if I have multiple employees clocked in at once, I can actually see them on a map here. It will have their picture and then where they are throughout the country, throughout the state, throughout the city, even throughout the globe if I have global employees. So I only have one employee clocked in mobily today, but if I had others, they would all appear on this map in one fell swoop for me to look at. And then again, I can click on that employee just to get more information on their particular location. Managers can actually also clock their employees in from here. So another place we can track time in Tsheets is right from this Who's Working window. So for example, if Jesse comes to my desk in the morning and lets me know that he forgot his phone at home, but he is here, I can see that and I know what he's working on. I can actually clock him in on his behalf. I can choose the customer that he's working on, the service item, if the time is billable or not, and then hit save. That shows up in real time, so I'm able to see that instantly. And then because this is cloud-based, one of the beauties of cloud technology is that shows up for Jesse. So if he does go home at lunch and grab his phone, for example, he's able to clock out for himself at the end of the day. Just because I created that timesheet for him doesn't mean that I'm in charge of it for the day. It's all syncing up in real time, so he's able to go and make edits and changes there. I'm going to go ahead and take a quick pause and just see what he did. Do we have any questions come in that I should address before I?
Yeah, thanks, Jess. I had a good one. Christy asked, there's two of them actually, how do you handle employee privacy for personal appointments and like lunch or doctor appointments or something?
Sure. I might want a little more context to that, but I'll take a stab. Christy, if you mean from like the location perspective, so like from GPS tracking, it only tracks when the employee's on the clock. So if they clock out for lunch or clock out for an appointment, we are not tracking their location at that time. And this typically, and maybe if it's coming in from a different angle, the software is to be used for work events. So you can take a lunch, you can set up like a paid lunch on here if you want, and it will track that in Tsheets and put that in for payroll purposes, but it won't show, again, their location. And then if they have a personal appointment and they're to clock out for that, they wouldn't, track their personal appointments in here and how long they were at that personal appointment. This is more for time tracked for payroll and invoicing, less of like a keeping track of your personal schedule and all the things that you did. It's for more exclusively for work.
Very cool. And then Steve asks, will we be able to pay vendors or, 1099-Cs an hourly rate within Tsheets in the future?
Ooh, that's a good question. So from my understanding, and I might have to take that question back to our customer service team to get a little more context, but vendors can pull over into Tsheets. So your 1099 contractors would pull over into Tsheets. They'd be listed as an employee in Tsheets, but it would be tracked as a vendor. And then when that time comes over into QuickBooks, so Tsheets would not handle the pay ever. So we're just the time tracking and the scheduling software. The payroll or the invoicing or the billing, that's all going to be done through your accounting software. We have some pretty like rudimentary invoicing features that a small business might be able to use, and they'd work just fine. But we definitely would recommend just linking it up with the power of your accounting software, so linking it up with QuickBooks. But then from what I understand, that's already the case. So they track their time in Tsheets. The vendor does. They track their time against customers, jobs, what they worked on. And then that time shows up in QuickBooks, and you could create an invoice to pay that vendor right out of, or a vendor bill right in QuickBooks.
Cool. Thanks, Jess.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and show you all another way you can track time in Tsheets, and this one's pretty fun. So let me just get this opened up, and this is our time clock kiosk. So let me just get this loaded, and I guess I'll agree. So this was developed and built to think of like maybe a factory or a group with lots of employees who they need to get clocked in quickly. But they don't need maybe they don't need that location view, so that location tracking we do, and maybe they don't need them to, maybe they all don't have computers. There's not an easy computer. So this is something that could be set up at like the front desk of an office or mounted to a wall in a factory or at a restaurant. So it can be set up on a tablet, any sort of tablet, or it can be set up on a computer. And all I do here is just find my name on a list, enter a PIN that's unique to me, and that would be set by myself. And of course, with all the changes coming, we have to always agree, and they just updated this, so you'd only have to do that one time. And then look, there I am, looking great in all my glory with the back white wall, or a white wall here. But
that is awesome.
I know, right? So here I am, and I can choose. I'm going to switch. I'm going to switch from one job to the next. I'm going to switch from the Capital Center to the Happy Farmer. I can choose which service I'm working on. Again, if my time is billable, and then I hit switch, and I'm good to go. I'm on the clock. So really, if you can imagine how quickly you could move a group of people through something like that, if there's a line, I find enter my PIN, find the job I'm working on, hit clock in, and I'm on the clock. So makes it really easy there. Now let's say I wanted to clock out at the end of the day. So again, I'm going to log back in. There I am again. All I have to do is hit clock out, and it's actually going to take a picture of my face. Look at that mid-sentence. It scans my face, and then it sends those images to my manager if there's any discrepancies. So gone are the days of buddy punching when you use the kiosk. So for example, if I texted Woody and said, hey Woody, I'm running late for work, but I'll stop and grab us coffee. If you'll just clock me in, here's my PIN, which is something that a lot of employers ask. There's a bad apple in every bunch, so even if you give them a PIN that's unique to them, the first question is usually, but what if they tell their coworker that PIN and their coworker clocks them in? So if that's the case, if I ask Woody to do that for me so that I can run grab coffee and he does that, it's going to do that facial recognition, scan Woody's face, realize, hey, that's not Jessica, that's Woody, and email my manager that picture of Woody and say, does Jessica look different today, essentially? And if it is me, which it's very accurate, so it's more than like you got a haircut or you shaved your beard. So it's not as much actual like pictures, it's truly the facial recognition, your bone structure, those types of things. So if that's not me, which it's not, then my manager can have that conversation with Woody and I, hey, why did you clock Jessica in on her behalf? So that kiosk has become really popular with a lot of our clients. So let me get logged back in to our web dashboard, and I'll jump into QuickBooks a little bit after some reporting. But any other questions while I'm logging back in?
Oh, yeah. Taylor wants to know if the facial recognition will unlock the doors to the building.
Oh, not yet. No, the power's probably there. I'm sure somebody could figure that out. But so far, at least, and now that we're part of Intuit, I would scan my badge to get into the building, and then to clock in, I would go to the kiosk that's mounted at the wall right when I get to the door, enter my PIN, and it scans my face. So, but I'm sure it's coming, the power to unlock the door through the facial scan. Awesome. Any other questions?
Oh, no. Sorry, Jess. Yeah,
oh,
that's
no,
it.
no,
Thanks.
You're fine. Okay, great. So that really in a nutshell is time tracking in Tsheets. So let's talk a little bit about reporting and that QuickBooks integration specifically. So now that we've tracked our time, our employees have tracked their time in Tsheets, the next step, of course, would be reporting on that time to use it for payroll and your invoicing and your billing. So we have tons of different reports in here. I'm not going to cover all of them today, but let's just start with the payroll report. That's a pretty basic one. So I can run this report for a week, a month, a pay period, or a custom date range. So if I wanted to run a report from like year to date and just see how many hours we've tracked year to date, I could do that. And all of these dates are pre-populated in your Tsheets account based on what your payroll software says or what your QuickBooks account says. So, your pay periods will match up with what's in QuickBooks, etc. So it makes it really easy for you. I'm going to go ahead and run this report. Perfect. And then what I can see all my employees here. I can see their total hours in gray, and then in green I can see their regular hours. So it looks like I got really lucky. None of my employees hit overtime in this past pay period, which is rare, usually never happens, but I'd be able to see that if they hit overtime in red. If they had taken PTO, I could see that in blue. And then there's also, we do have the California double time, and that would show up in yellow. I just don't have my company set up for California. So let's say I want to take a closer look at Brad and see what he worked on over this next pay period. I know he worked 128.17 hours, but I want to know where those hours were spent. So looks like he worked a lot of 24-hour shift days, and that's not normal for my company. I know that. So what I'd be able to do here very easily is I see, oh, it looks like Brad was just kind of forgetting to clock out. I can actually click this pencil icon and make changes here. So I can change this from the 22nd or from the 23rd to the 22nd, and I know he clocked out at 5 p.m. And so I can make changes there, just hit save, and it will update that for me automatically. So any changes I need to make, I can do that right from Tsheets from this report here. I don't have to go specifically to find his time card. And it looks like I had a lot of employees who did that. So let's look at a different week. This must have been a week where I was fiddling around with my account. So let's go back and maybe do last week. See if we have a little bit more accurate data. So let's take a look at Brad again, and here this looks a little bit cleaner. So I can see at a glance, when he clocked in, when he clocked out, how many hours he worked, which customer he was working on, if that time was billable, and then if, what service item he chose. And I can also see notes if he had left his notes here. Like I showed you, I'd be able to edit that from here. I could delete a timesheet if it looked inaccurate. Maybe I knew there was a mistake. And I can also click on that globe icon and see that GPS data that we showed earlier, but I can see that retroactively. So I can always go back and look and see where my employees clocked in and clocked out from, just to verify that it's all correct. Once I've checked everybody and made sure this is all good to go, of course, I could just download this and upload it to my payroll software. I could use it to manually do payroll if I want, but that's not our ideal solution. We have the power of the cloud. So I'm actually going to jump into my QuickBooks account and talk through how you might do that here. So in my QuickBooks Online account, there's this plus icon, and I know Woody already pointed out the approved time section. So what I would do is just click on approved time, and that's going to open up this approvals window. And then I'm going to go to that exact same date range, and I see that same data. So I can see how many employees tracked time and the total hours that were tracked that week. And then just like I was doing in Tsheets, I can actually click on an employee at any time. I can see their regular, their overtime, their total hours. I can click on a specific timesheet and make edits to that timesheet. So I can change the clock in time, change the clock out time, change the customer they were working on, the job, etc. if I need to. Again, I can see that location and I can see their notes. So I'm able to do those edits right from within QuickBooks. So Tsheets can truly just become your time tracking software, and then QuickBooks can truly become your, your accounting, your payroll, your invoicing, billing, all those things, because you don't have to go into Tsheets to make those edits. If I make an edit in QuickBooks, that edit will automatically go to Tsheets and vice versa. So it just makes it a really seamless process. So let's say I've looked at all this time, I've made sure it's correct. We've got a little straggler here hanging out. I don't know what that is. Must be my browser or something holding on to that. But what I can do once I have checked out these hours and ensured they're correct is I can actually accept these hours and create an invoice, or accept them and run payroll. So I'm going to go ahead and accept them and create an invoice. So from here, this took me right to my invoicing section in QuickBooks, and then all I have to do is choose a customer. And then what you'll see here is all my time that it could be billable towards that customer shows up on the right. So I just click add, puts that right on my invoice, and I can create that invoice. Now, I haven't filled in my billable rates. That's on me. Most people would have those filled in. I just haven't filled them in on the demo account. So 9 times out of 10, or I'd say 10 times out of 10, you have those already filled in, your billable rates per task or per customer. So that's going to actually automatically populate and do the math for you. But let's say it's $10 an hour or something. We can go ahead and save that, and then it's going to go ahead and allow me to create that invoice. So I can add in my own lines manually, but again, really, really easy for me to go in here and add in all that billable time that was tracked and do my invoice. So it takes that process down from, maybe a few minutes process to, I'd say, a minute max. I can see my hours, create that invoice, and send that invoice on to my customer. Even things like the description field here, that's where my notes from Tsheets would show up. So if my employee had left notes on their time card on what work they did for the customer, or if I had added notes on my time card, those would all show up here as well. So it makes it really easy. So I can either save and send or just save it. I'm going to go ahead and save it. And then we can go back to our approve section if we'd like and, take a look at it again. Again, you can do that accept and run payroll. I mentioned to Woody before I got on here, but I don't have a payroll demo account, which I guess Woody does. So I guess it's possible. I had never thought that was possible. So that's where you would go to run payroll, which I can't show you because I don't have a way. It will just tell me to buy payroll if I click on that. But
Right.
that's where you would go to do that.
Yeah, but they saw it in mine, Jess, and then what I'll do is later on today, I'll just invite you as a co-admin to my file so you can just start doing that. Tsheets is already hooked up. I did have a couple questions, if that's all right. Sherry asked, how do you batch enter employee time if you can?
Into Tsheets?
Yeah.
Sure, yeah. So if you wanted to just go in and enter a bunch of time data for employees, there's a couple ways you can do that. So if you click on this time entries tool, the one I like is this time slider. So let's, if I wanted to enter in all the time for my employees on Friday, I just would type my employees' names in here on the left, and my popular ones are already populated. And then I just drag and drop from start time. My mouse, I think, is like stuck somewhere. Let me see if I can close it and open that up again. But you drag and drop, and then you would choose your customer. Oh, actually, I know why. It's because that's in the future. Silly me. I can't add time in the future. That's one thing you can't do because we don't know what the time is tracked until you've actually done it. But let's say they worked on Sunday, and I want to add that. I can just drag and drop, and it just pops up this little editor where I can choose the customer, choose the service item, choose the billable time, and hit save. And that just saves that right there on that time slider. Another place I can do this is the manual time card. So this time card is actually super popular for accounting professionals, even to track your own time, because it's based more on maybe your billable hours, it's total hours versus like clock in, clock out. So for this one, I would just, again, choose my customer and then find the day of the week. I can plug in my total hours, choose the service I worked on, if it was billable or not, leave notes, and hit save. And I could do that, daily. I could do that weekly. I could do that every pay period or before I'm ready to do an invoice. So a lot of accounting professionals use that. And if you want to do that for your other employees, you just hit switch user and then type that employee's name in. And then that's how you would be able to do that for them. But I'd say the easiest way to batch enter time is that time slider.
Nice. And this is just a quick answer probably. Let's see, if you put in time in QBO, like I was doing it, that wouldn't show up in Tsheets, would it? Or would it?
It wouldn't. So the place that talks specifically to Tsheets is this approved time section. So if you did add time in here, for example, added a new time card in here, it would show up, but anywhere else it would not.
Cool. And then finally, and then we'll let you just finish it up. Jess, I know you're on the approval sheet, and sorry if this threw you away from that, but it's interesting. Another person, another attendee wanted to see the manual timesheet, so that really worked out. That's awesome. Is there a way to determine time the employee has entered versus time the employer has entered? Because a lot of times I'll go in and edit okay, cool. Yeah,
so where you can see that this time entry section is sort of that's where you would see all your edits and things. So what I can see from here is every single timesheet that's ever been created since Tsheets, since you started your Tsheets account. And I can click on this sort of log area if time isn't approved, and I can see who created that time. So this is a timesheet for myself, Jessica Green, and it says Jessica Green created the timesheet. But if it wasn't her, then I'd be able to see that. And if I click on, I'm trying to think if there's a log. I'm trying to think if I have a log where I created time for somebody else. Well, I just clocked in, was it Jessie today? So if I click on this log, here again, it shows up in bright red. This is time for Jesse, but it was Jessica that created that time. And then if I edit that time for any reason, it will also show who edited that time and when. So you can always view those things and make sure, if you have any worries that people are entering the time in wrong, that type of thing, you can see that right from there. And then this little orange, little dot that showed up, that's part of that kiosk, so that's the picture that it scanned of me. And then here, see, there's that option that says, this is Jessica or not Jessica Green, and then it keeps that picture that I just said, yep, that's Jessica. It keeps that and kind of stores it in its backlog of facial recognition, so it has more data with which to compare to the next time I clock in. But that actually, at a high level and from a time tracking perspective, that's all I wanted to share about that. I did want to let everyone know, I'll just open this up, that we do have a partner program. So for those of you that don't know, as an accounting professional, you do get a free Tsheets account. So if you liked what you saw today or you're curious sort of to kick the tires and play around a little bit, you can just go to tsheets.com/pros. Maybe Woody would put that in the chat box, because it looks like I can.
Yeah, what is that? What's that one again? It's Tsheets. Yeah.
Tsheets.com/pros. Yep. So PROS.
PROS, right? Yeah,
yep.
Got it. Thanks.
So that's where you go to sign up for your free account, and then you also get some discounted pricing for your clients. You have the ability to earn a commission. We provide tons of different education opportunities, and you do get a dedicated account manager as well. So if you aren't a part of that program yet, I definitely would recommend it, just so that you can get more comfortable and understand the process. And obviously, since we're part of Intuit now, we work extremely closely with their ProAdvisor programs, so a lot of alignment there between the two programs, and they're very similar. So if you enjoy the Intuit ProAdvisor program, I would guarantee that you'll enjoy ours as well. But that's all
Very
I have.
cool.
I don't know if I have any other questions, but
no, I'll watch out for questions, but I'm going to show something too. So Jessica, thanks so much for diving deep into Tsheets and showing the integration and that. I'm going to take this over. I wanted to show one other thing because there's some questions on, I know it's, because what we're doing here is even though Tsheets is part of Intuit now, so it's, again, a special type of integration, right? So it's just how it is. It's just built in, as you saw. Even when I was doing some data entry there, it just pops up, right? So in QBO, when you go to the Apps tab, you have your, and Jessica already went over the Tsheets for time tracking. But Jessica, I'm assuming it's still this, or is there even more of an affiliation? Like the pros have even more affiliation than just like the % off the base if you connect it from QBO? Okay.
Yeah, this is it. Yep, so this is the one here. You can sign up at that link, or you can click right in the Apps tab and sign up as well.
Nice. Oh, very cool. Yeah, this is super easy. I get app now, and then I can connect, install for client, and then invite. There's no like user limit with Tsheets, right? Like I would just invite.
User limit.
Okay.
Yeah, it's unlimited, and then for the accounting professionals, unlimited and free. So it's not that you're getting like a free basic version. You get the free professional version of it. So all the bells and whistles, all the things you saw today for free.
Oh, right. And I often thought, I remember you probably said this, or one of your colleagues, like it's a great way to just get into Tsheets because the accountant can just get it for their firm and just start using it, right? There's no cost to that. Yep. And then once you see the benefits, you just start adding your clients. Yeah, it's just it's a great way to do it. That type of affiliation is awesome.